the air coming in and out your nose. It'll be a little cooler on the way in and warm on the way out. And just tune into what's moving with every breath. And we're going to count and inhale and count the exhale as one breath. And I'm going to ask you to, I'm going to say 3, 2, 1, and then you guys are going to count your breaths. And this is, try to breathe as normally as you can. Yeah, like, of course now we're being all meditative, but try to breathe as normally as you can, just to find out what your frequency is. 3, 2, 1. Stop. So how many breaths did you do? 1.5. Ah, okay, good. 4, great. Multiply your number by 4, and that's the number of times you breathe per minute. And I suspect that everybody in here is on the low end of that, but normal is 12 to 24 breaths per minute. And when we're out there walking around on the street, not focusing and not sitting down in chairs, we're probably breathing more, somewhere between 12 and 16. Most of the people in this room know that.
Is lower better?
What?
Is lower better?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. Yogis breathe between 6 to 8 times a minute. Now, you've all heard the native American's tale. If you have X number of breaths for your whole lifetime, if your lifespan is measured in breaths, how fast do you want to be breathing? And for your body, you can imagine when you drive your car and you shift gears, right? You get into the higher gears, everything goes lower, but it has more power. Your body's the same way. So you can play with that. And that's a good practice and a good point to focus. A lot of these exercises have way more than one use, and one of the ways you can actually use that, just counting your breath as a practice. Focus your mind if something is trying to eat you up, thinking-wise, and everything's fine out here. You use that, just count your breath. It's so simple, and you don't have to go anywhere and sit in the mountains, or you already shaved your head, Bill, so this is good. So work with frequency. Play with frequency. It's a good thing. So,
I have a question.
Yes.
I'm just very aware that whenever someone tells me to focus on my breath, that I begin to get sort of tense.
Oh,
I don't know if that's only me, but
absolutely not. No.
I mean, I'm sure that some of that is, well, most of it, if not all of it, is psychological, and you're not here to, spend time talking about that. But do you have any suggestions on how to just let that?
This is really important. I have clients who come to me on the massage table, and I'm saying, take a deep breath, and they go, So, no, you're not the only one. And just the more you practice and the more you watch your own breath, you'll become so comfortable with it, you won't even think about it anymore. So just keep practicing. And yes, there are two things that happen when we sit in this class. One is that suddenly we all become really yogic, and we're breathing really slowly and really deeply and really smoothly. And the other thing is we freeze out completely because somebody else is watching what we're doing, and we're wanting, it to be a certain way, and it's not that way. Our patterns are very unconsciously formed. When we're little children, when we're born, our breath and all of our experiences are recorded in our breathing pattern. Every emotional experience, every physical experience or trauma, every mental thought that we have, whether it's a sweet thing or whether it's a difficult thing, whether it's intentionally that way or just something you heard, it's all recorded in your breathing pattern. The breathing pattern is so individualized that we could all practice the exact same, 3 things, 5 things for 30 years, and they wouldn't be anywhere near the same for all kinds of reasons. So the more you practice, the easier it gets. And then things like becoming tense in order to relax, that'll just melt away, just like ice melts in the sun. And the other extreme too is, okay, so when we're sitting by ourselves, suddenly we're really yogic and we're breathing really deeply. But if you do that for any length of time, your old pattern will come back until you've practiced a while, and then it just melts away, just like that ice cube. Slowly, slowly, the patterns and the kinks and the stresses and the over-controlling will end. The point of doing this is not to make yourself feel this way or that way or to always be peaceful. The point is so that when you need to come back into yourself, you have a tool to do it, and you can do it under almost any circumstance. So the more you practice this, the better you'll get just whenever you need it, whether it's to reframe your sleeping pattern, breath while you're sleeping, or whether it's to cope with your life in general and our relationships and all the stuff that goes on in the world. So that's why, and the beginning is slow pattern really helps. But usually when you close your eyes and focus on the breath, that just happens automatically. And you're not going to suddenly start breathing 6 times a minute, all the time, but it'll just come down, like that ice cube melting in the sun. It'll shift every time you practice.
You say that when we start to meditate and slow our breathing, after a while the old pattern comes back in the meditation breathing?
Well, I don't know, do you meditate?
Not much.
Okay, well, I don't know, what have you experienced? Because that's the
I
most
have been
important.
aware of that, my model, I guess, is Kabat-Zinn, where you just pay attention to the breath coming and going, and I'm so busy paying the breath, I don't pay attention to the speed or the depth or whatever, just that I'm doing it.
Exactly. That's the fun thing about this, is that you don't have to remember any of these details at all. Just being quiet and watching it helps that ice cube melt. So that's why John Kabat-Zinn does not have to teach any mechanics. But when he begins to do advanced breathing practices, or when he's doing, there are certain meditation practices that aren't the mindfulness meditation that he teaches to the general public, that's when you want to know these mechanics. But if you don't know any of these mechanics at all, your body will train you. So if you just practice any part of what we learned today, over time, it will shift, it will balance itself. So all these details, you can just throw them out after we've talked today. But that's a really good point. When I said that the pattern will go back to the old habit, it's that during meditation, have you noticed how sometimes your brain will kind of carry you away? That's when the old breathing pattern comes. And then when you come back to center, then the breath will regulate also. There are yogis who say that our thinking happens at the pauses in between inhale and exhale, that otherwise we're really tuned into what's going on now, so that we're at our very best to do whatever needs to be done. So that's a really good point, and I love John Kabat-Zinn, which is another good point. There are many different breathing systems, many different books. It's all over the web. Oprah's talking about it, Newsweek, Time Magazine. Great, that's just fabulous. And each of these systems teaches a little bit different. It doesn't mean that anybody's wrong or right. It just means there are different ways to look at it, and different systems have come up with different answers to the same problem. So this is just one of many techniques. So put one hand on your chest, one hand on the upside down U between your rib cage, just below the sternum. And check to see what's moving.